been asking God why he put me here. I've been asking God to use me in this season of my life. I've been asking God to show me a purpose. I've been asking God to turn it around. I've been asking God to make this situation new. I've been asking God to reveal to me why it's been so hard. Sometimes you don't get to the thing that God wants to do because you do not recognize what has been brought into your life as a gift. Yeah, a gift. Wait a minute. Paul got warmed by the fire. And then, check this out, Holly. The same thing that warmed him wounded him. You ever been warmed by a thing 1 minute and wounded by it the next? The more warmth the relationship gives you, the greater the potential it can wound you. The more passion you have, the more susceptible to certain temptations you will be. The more creative you are, the more constrictions will try to keep you from creating. Because that was a powerful thought for me, Chris. He's standing by the fire and it's warming him. And then the same fire that one moment was bringing him warmth brought him a wound. Now let's read about the wound for a moment, because we may never know if Paul was like doing too much by putting wood on the fire. It sounds like the islanders had it pretty well taken care of. And Paul's like, I'm not just standing around. This is ridiculous. I'll make this fire higher. And see, he's not native to the island, so he's doing something that he doesn't naturally do. Remember, he's good with words, not wood. And sometimes when you step out of your comfort zone and try to do something that you're not naturally good at doing, look what happens in verse 4. Out of the heat came a viper, a snake. And the Bible says that it fastened itself on his hand. And verse 4 is the one that I really want you to look at. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, who said? They said to each other, this man must be a murderer. Now what we know, because we've already read to the end of this story, is that the one they're calling a murderer is actually going to heal all of their sicknesses. So the man they're calling a murderer is actually carrying their medicine. Did my mic cut out? I thought you'd say amen to that. The one that they were calling a murderer, the one that they were saying this is a proof of divine disfavor, the one that they saw the snake, because track with me, he crashes on an island that God has called him to, but nobody knows that yet. He's building a fire, and out of the fire as he's building it, he gets bit. By the way, bonus point, you can't build anything without getting bit. Anything. So if you ever want to start a church and you want to build a church, you're going to get bit. Sheep bite. Not y'all. You want to build a business, you're going to get bit. You want to build a family, you're going to get bit. You ever heard the phrase, bite the hand that feeds you? That's what it means. That whatever you try to build, now, if you sit back and don't do anything for God, if Paul doesn't build a fire, he doesn't get bit. But if he doesn't get wounded, he doesn't get warmed. So what are you going to do? Spend the rest of your life just trying to avoid being injured? Trying to avoid being disappointed? Try to avoid getting your heart broken? He's like, man, I wish I could preach to these people. I could lead them all to Jesus. I can't preach, so let me throw some fire on here. And then all of a sudden, because he is not native to this land, here comes a snake. He doesn't really know to look out for snakes. He's not from around these parts. And a snake jumps up, bites him on his hand. And now the Bible says they all started calling him a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, the goddess justice has not allowed him to live. Y'all, I need to slow down and tell you that anytime you try to interpret your identity through an event, you miss. See it? The snake bit, he must be a murderer. A bad thing happened, I must be a bad person. No, you made a stupid decision. God can use stupid, and there is still time for you to take what you learned and throw another log on the fire and see God use your life. And in verse 5, I think Paul preaches one of the most powerful sermons that he ever preached. And he didn't say a word. The one who changed the world with his words preached a powerful sermon. Because see, when they saw the snake on his hand, they saw it as a sign. Ooh, this is a bad guy. God lets bad things happen to bad people. When Paul saw the snake on his hand, he could have thought this: of all of the 275 prisoners on this ship who actually did something bad, you're gonna let all these bums that aren't even helping build the fire, and you're gonna let the snake. Have you ever had a moment like, really, God? Really? They get to get married before I do? Them? I can understand them. But then the snake bites and Paul could go, this is how you reward me for surviving the shipwreck? This is how you affirm me for preaching the gospel? This is how you want to use me? See, I think the reason Paul got bit by a snake, I'm a little controversial on this. I don't think God made the snake bite Paul. I don't think the devil did either. I think the snake bit Paul because snakes bite. Okay, I know that's real deep. But what you got to remember while we're so busy trying to figure out why me and why this and when are you going to get me off this island, God? I don't believe it. I think you could substantiate it from the New Testament. I don't believe that Paul was just waiting to get off the island. I believe he showed up with the question, why am I really here? Why am I really on this job? Why am I really in this season? Why am I really having this conflict? And not only why, but God, how do you want to use this? Say this. Now, it's one thing to want God to use your words. Paul was used to that. But this was different. Because when the snake bit him, he shook it off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. Isn't that amazing? That Paul wanted a way to show them how great God was. And God knew that Paul couldn't speak their language. But he knew that everybody on that island could speak snake. Because everybody on the island, I'm about to help you understand how some of the stuff you're going through, it's not something that God did, but it's something that he wants to use. And the sooner you decide, God can use this too. Say it. God can use this too. That's the whole lesson today. If I've confused you talking about barbarians and boards and winds, and if I've confused you talking about snakes and prison cells and pins and pulpits, if all of this rhetoric has done nothing but to confuse you, I want you to realize at the time when Paul could not use words to preach, God gave him something that speaks louder than words. And his wounds spoke louder than his words. Because when they saw him get bit and he shook the snake off and something bad happened, but after something bad happened, Paul did not debate with the snake. He learned that from Genesis chapter 3. You don't talk to snakes. I said you don't talk to snakes. You don't speak to stuff that's beneath you. You don't argue with stuff that's trying to kill you. You don't reason your way out of shame and condemnation. You shake that stuff off. So sometimes Paul would use his words and he would speak and people would be saved, and he would speak and people would be healed, and he would speak and people would understand. And it's wonderful that God used Paul's words in such an unusual way, with such an unusual gift. But now he is in a situation where his words will not work. So if you have faith to believe it, here's what I think the text proves. That God knew that of all the other prisoners on that island, there was only one out of 276 who still had enough faith after the shipwreck. That if I let this snake bite him, I'm not gonna send the snake to bite him. Life just happens. I'm not saying God is punishing you or God caused it. It doesn't matter, because even if God didn't do it, He can use it. He can use it. He can use this too. High five 3 people, say he can use this too. Come on, take your left hand and high five them. Say he can use this too. I read so many of Paul's words. Oh, I'm sorry, that was sloppy. I can't go out like that. I have a nightmare about that. We got to get at least 3 more to make up for that bad one. You ever have a bad dap and it just haunts the rest of your life? 3 years later, having flashbacks, thinking about it. Don't think I don't think about it. And Paul took that snake and he said, oh, this. I've been asking God for a way to reach these people since we got on this island. I've been asking God why he put me here. I've been asking God to use me in this season of my life. I've been asking God to show me a purpose. I've been asking God to turn it around. I've been asking God to make this situation new. I've been asking God to reveal to me why it's been so hard. So this must not be a snake. This must be a microphone, because I'm about to preach this gospel of the power of God. Oh yeah, I'm happy now. High five your neighbor, say this too. I know you want God to use you in a certain way. I know you want him to get you there on the ship. I know you don't want the business to fail. I know you don't want your kid to flunk the class. I know you don't want to carry the illness in your body. I'm just saying that snakes bite because snakes bite. But God knows how to turn a snake into a sign. Oh God. Oh God. Now, a few days later, Paul gets a dinner invitation. After he shook that snake into the fire, everybody you walk past that's coming in for the 11:30 today, when they walk past you, just do that. Give them a little preview. And when they look at you kind of funny or they want to fight you, just look at them. Keep walking. Come on, you got some stuff you need to shake today. You got some stuff you need to shake today. And when you do, it's going to be the loudest sermon that your life ever preached. And you will begin to discover, I'm telling you right now, if Paul would have started using his speaking gift in this moment to argue with the people who were saying he was a murderer, he would have died. Isn't that crazy how if he would have used his primary gift, it would have gotten him killed? Wow. His primary gift was words, but God said, your words won't work in this situation. So I need to trust you enough to give you a wound. Because when God really wants to reveal who he is, he gives a wound. And then the decision comes. Will you use the wound? The snake didn't shake Paul's faith. Paul's faith shook that snake. He knew which one could be bit and not be bitter. And I believe that for some of the precious people that God has given me to preach to. The miracle isn't that you didn't get bit, it's that you didn't get bitter. Oh, you didn't bit. Oh, so when you were worshiping today, you were lifting bit hands. I almost didn't notice. I almost didn't see your bite mark. This dude named Publius, I almost named you that, son. This dude Publius, the head man on the island. The head man on the island. A few days later says, bring me a prisoner to have dinner with me. No. That's not what important people. You think Publius said, bring me a killer. Bring me a prisoner. No. Don't worry about following me to the light, guys. It'll be distracting. Just let me walk. He said, bring me a preacher. No. He didn't know Paul was a preacher because they couldn't understand his language. But he spoke snake. He said, there was a guy who got bit and didn't die. No, it was crazy. It was B.A. He just shook. B.A., bold and assertive. He just shook that thing right off. And he just kept right on standing there. And Publius said, I want to have dinner with him. Now let me ask you a question. If Paul didn't survive that snake, you think he would have gotten that invitation? So what is it that you've been through that God gave you, that your bite marks become a passport to your purpose?
Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon.